surgery.
What's up, flooring family? Welcome to the Huddle. We come at you every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. With me, as always, is Daniel and Jose Gonzalez from Preferred Flooring out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We got a special guest today, Mr. Roland Thomas of Thompson's Flooring out of, tell me again.
Thompson.
Out of Frederick, Maryland.
Frederick, Maryland. Roland's been on our podcast a time or two and, several times. Always a great insight. He brings a real good, unique perspective from the retailer's world, as well as training and just what it takes to be a high-level flooring installer. So today is just about that, retail and the retailers and how you build a successful team around you. I was talking, do you guys have an echo?
A little bit, yes.
Okay, I'm going to turn some things, try and tune some things in here. There we go. Hopefully that works.
Okay.
I was talking to Roland right before the podcast here, getting a little bit more background. I've known Roland for, 4 or 5 years. We've been seeing each other at shows and hanging out a little bit. One of the unique aspects that he does is a lot of these TV shows, like I believe it's Restaurant Impossible is one of them that you do. I think you've done some others, but his real passion is in installation. And he, at the ripe age of 62, is that correct? He decided to go out.
64,
go out and start his own retail location where he sells materials and labor, provides labor services and consultancy to clients. So today it's going to be a little bit less of my input because, to be honest with you, I'm in the commercial world. Go Carerra, which many of you know me from, works for both retail and commercial contractors. It's designed to do so. However, my expertise in flooring, particularly from a business subject matter, is really more consolidated around the commercial world. So I'm pleased to have Roland on the call, and I know that the Preferred Flooring gentlemen do a lot of residential work as well, and retail, possibly a little bit of that as well. So I'm going to let you guys kind of talk about what it takes. And Roland, I mean, you went from installer to like the lead of an installation team at a Carpet One, I believe, and then went on to start your business as a retailer. What are some of the key? Let's start here. What have you learned through that transition, and what are some key pitfalls that you kind of can share with us that maybe help some other people avoid if they're looking to do the same thing you did?
Well, it's sort of, I think things worked out in the right progression for me, because when I was out installing, I installed a small bathroom for a consumer, or I'd do a big high-rise commercial building. So I did both. I worked both commercial and residential as far as installing. And then when I went into the Carpet One, so I learned that aspect, and and that's still my passion. Installers are my passion. But yet when I went into the Carpet One dealer and was handling all the stuff for them, and I got to go to the sales trainings. Like I went to the Carpet One conventions. I went through all the sales trainings with Sam Allman and all those. So I started learning that end of the aspect of the business. So it sort of flip-flopped. I still kept my hands in installation because I still would go out and do the custom work and certain things. But at that time I was learning the retail end of it, getting to meet the sales reps and the retail and all that that end of the industry,
So on that
prior.
side, is that some of the lessons
Some of the pitfalls, well, yeah.
was getting to know some of the sales reps and actually realizing that you needed some
Sure.
soft skills, some sales training,
Correct.
some of that salesmanship that goes along with, owning your own retail business.
Well, there again, you hear all the time installers make the best salespeople, but I've seen so many installers try to go into sales and ended up going back into installs, because it does take a different mindset trying to sell, and it takes a different disposition trying to sell, and learning that from going through the customer service orientations and all that kind of stuff, learning how to talk to a consumer is another skill to learn. So installers, to be able to make that transfer, has to be willing to open their mind up to learn that into the industry. With us as installers, when we loaded up in the morning, we were going out to make money. And we knew we had a job. We knew we were going to do something. We were going to make some money. And a salesperson has to learn that. They have to learn rejection, because you're not going to close every sale. Because if you close every sale, you're not pricing it right. It's just not going to happen.
Good point.
It's just not going to happen. So that salesperson can go out and talk to 10 people, and he's fortunate if he gets 6 of them, and 7 of them. There's always.
So as you started doing this, as you started to really develop your sales skills and stuff, and creating that soft, knowing how to talk to customers and sell them flooring is one thing. How did you use installation? And I'm going somewhere with this. How did you use your installation prowess and knowledge? Did that come in handy, I should say, when it came to selling?
Sure, it does, and it still does to this day, and that's why I'm a firm believer that salespeople. Me and Jerry Levinson went over that, battled back and forth. That salespeople should know about installation, because when you're talking to a consumer, there's a fine line. You want them to understand that understand what's going to happen in their home, because it's their castle. So you're going to want them to understand what's going to happen in their home. And the more to be able to project that to them is going to give you a hands up to somebody, a salesperson who don't. But in the same realms, you don't want to overwhelm them with too much technology, terminology either.
So you don't take all those plaques off the wall and stack them up in your truck and take them out to show
No,
off.
I make them come in and look.
No, he just makes one post every day.
Yeah.
365. So
Kevin is on Facebook. He says, as seen on TV, Mr.
As seen on TV. You should have a shirt like that, Roland.
Yeah,
as seen on TV. No, so as you started down that path and you started to grow the business, I think you stated earlier, it kind of just took off. You were thinking like, hey, I'm going to finish my career out, doing a few things, almost as I wouldn't call it a hobby, but it almost seemed like you were going into it with, muted expectation, and then it kind of took off for you. You had to build a team around you, which is really what this podcast, this episode's about, is how do you build a team as a retailer? But more importantly, or maybe more importantly, is how do installers become part of a good team, and what aspect on both sides? So how did you build it? And then what's it take from the installer to be part of a good team and be valued by the retailer?
Well, go ahead, Jose. You put into
No,
that.
I just like the question. I like the question that he asked you. I want to hear it from the master of disaster.
I don't know. Anyway, what I did is, like I said, I came in figuring, I was going to just install, sell, and install, because I knew I had picked up some selling skills. So, I figure I've been married now 49 years. I know I can sell. I've talked my wife into being able to stay with me. But so in the same realms, but when things started taking, I had to learn to then trust. And fortunately, because I was at the position I was, I knew, with CFI trainings and everything else, I knew what the better installers were. but I still had to learn to trust them, and they had to learn to trust me when they came in. So it come down to trust and feeling comfortable with each other. They got to feel comfortable with me. I got to feel comfortable with them. And then when it came to where I had moved to where I couldn't even handle all the measures anymore, as one person, then I went out and through being at the Carpet One, I knew who was one of the best salesmen, considered one of the best salesmen in town that people hated to go up against. And I made a phone call and said, okay, hey, I need a guy. You ready to come? And he said, sure. So it's learning, how to we're not, just like last week. I got a call from PJ's wife that PJ was not doing well. He's better now. So I can bring that up.
Let me interject for the audience. PJ's one of the premier trainers in the industry. He's the owner of Natural Fiber. I forget the whole name, but it's
NFIC,
the natural.
right?
What? Go ahead.
NFIC, Natural Fiber Installation Certification.
Yeah, so it's high end, dealing with wools, and you can even learn how to do the, sew seams to pattern matching.
We went through that class. It's a great class.
Yeah, so if you're ever interested, just to let everybody know he's talking about when he says PJ, it's PJ Arthur with NFIC. So
yeah, so I get a call on Tuesday morning from Eloise's wife saying that he was taken to the hospital and he had a course starting Wednesday. There's guys from Canada and all that in and needed the course done. My point is to this was I had the capability, because I have a good team, to know that I could move things around, get in a car and drive down there and put it on for them, because I had installers that were going to take care of my customers back here. I had a salesman who's going to be able to take care of everything business-wise. And so I packed up, went down and did the class for him and came back Saturday. So
it provides freedom is what you're
Correct.
saying. I mean, this is a very specific instance where the freedom came out to help a friend and, not only a personal friend of yours, but also an industry friend, right? And able to go help PJ out. Freedom looks, multiple different facets of that, but you were able to build a team that's able to run the company in your absence. How did you do that? Let's get to some nuts and bolts.
Okay.
What are you looking for from let's start with the salesman. What do you look for in a good salesman, for example?
I'll just hang up. So there again, when I started putting the team together, I went to the installers that, I used at the Carpet One dealer, installers that I know went through the certifications, know what they know how they had to know what I expected out of them when they go into my consumer's home.
And what is that? Let's drill down. What is that? What do you expect of them?
What I expect them is to have do a good job, because everybody wants them to do a good job. But when the next day or the 2 days later, sometimes it's 2 days. All right. We make a phone call to our retail customers. All right. Or any of them. And my questions are, did they do a good job? So they're expected to do that. They know my quality level, and they're expected to reach towards that the best they can.
And it sounds like that starts with the salesperson then.
Correct. It starts with the salesperson setting the expectations to the client. All right. So he's got to know that. All right. Then I'm going to ask him a question. Were they pleasant? Did you enjoy them being in their home? I expect them to treat my customers with kid gloves. It's their home. You're a guest, and I expect them to treat them that way. And then I go, did they clean up and leave your house better than it was when they came? Those, and I want, if any of those, they give me a negative review, I'm going to the installer and saying, hey, you didn't reach it this time. Now, do I expect them to be perfect? No, I'm not. But I expect them to strive to do their best. And they know that's what I expect out of them.
Yeah, and you have a a good follow-up and an expectation. So
Yeah.
it starts with your finding, just to kind of unpack this a little bit. So getting a good salesman is getting somebody who knows flooring, or can be trained to know flooring, and B, can set end user expectations or homeowner expectations, because that is probably one of and I want to bring that point out, because that's, I think, Daniel and Jose, you guys are in the Facebook groups, but that's one of the complaints from a lot of installers out there, is that the salesman promises the world, and then it's impossible for the installer to get out there and reach those expectations. So I think that's important, that a salesperson, manages the expectations of the homeowner or the end user. And so that point is worthy of noting.
Right. To talk on the sales end of it is what you're saying is, this is what I have in place. Okay. With my salesperson. Now, fortunately, there again, I knew him. He was at the Carver One dealer for years. Prior to that, his dad was a Navy dealer for years. He grew up in the sales portion. So product knowledge and everything else. I mean, somebody walks in with a flooring and he'll look at it and go, oh, that's this. He knows that. He can tell them what it was, when it was sold, and if they make it anymore. But what makes what him and I have in place, all right, is like you said about how important it is, me being on the installation end, a salesperson being able to relate. So two things we have in place. One is, if he goes out and looks at a job and he has any doubt whatsoever of something that can be done, should be done, might get done, what transition should go on this door, he brings it to me. He'll take pictures, brings it to me. There's sometimes, with me being gone the way I'm gone, he can't bring it to me. So if I'm not here for him to bring it to me, he then needs to talk to the head installer from one of the crews, because we have multiple, workroom type things. They have one guy, Alfredo, has 7 guys, and Edwin has 8 guys. All right. But he needs to take it to them and say, hey, here's the pictures I took. Here what needs to be done. Or if he has any doubt, line up for them to meet him at the job and go over it prior to pricing the job. So that's what we have set up here. So, I don't depend on, he never installed, and you can only teach them so much about installation without them, if they haven't done it. So if there's any doubt in what should be priced out, whether it should be priced out, what should be priced out, what's needed, it's in place for him then to seek out the expert that knows that. So that's how we have set up.
If you don't know, ask.
That's right.
100%.
What's your guys' experience in dealing with that portion when you're selling to an end user? How do you guys deal with the similar situation? You have somebody going out and selling a job. Do you guys do that? You guys do that?
My coffee.
And do you guys do that and then bounce things off one another, or do you have a separate salesperson that goes out and sells your residential projects?
No,
I think
that would be us. That
a
would
lot
be
of
us.
a lot of the residential is him. When I'm dealing with residential customers, I guess I don't really know, because I just go in there, explain to them what we're gonna do. I mean,
What it is in a nutshell is Daniel has patience for computers. He doesn't have patience for people sometimes, right? And he
not
understands
sometimes.
his strengths and his weaknesses. I'm definitely more of a people person, so it just makes more sense to put myself out there. And I look at it from an installer perspective. I don't ever, and I will never intentionally put an installer at risk or jeopardize a project because I'm over speaking. But I also understand some of the process. So I do not, I under promise and try to over deliver, right? I still try to do that on residential and commercial. but at the same time is, I try to be thorough, and the way Daniel said to explain everything, I do my very best to do that. If I don't know, I say I don't know. If I do know, I try to articulate my words in a manner that will fit our conversation, right? Like I don't want to start dropping technical terms to someone where it's going to go over their head. So I try to say it in terms that they're going to understand.
You want to get too technical. Sometimes
right.
it's just
And it's just one of those things where I try to find a solution, and instead of shooting down their ideas or saying, hey, I know that you have this material in mind, but we can't do that here. I try to find a solution, and if they don't understand it, I explain it to them that way. And as far as the installs, I think what I'm finding is that no matter how thorough I am with the client, there's always something that they act like, oh, I didn't know that I was supposed to do that. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. They like, in residential, you tend to see that a lot more than commercial. But you're dealing directly with the end user. There's no in between. It's you and them, and that's why. But I try to
So
set
they-
everybody up for success.
so they forgot they had to move that water bed and safe.
Yeah, we'll have all
Yeah.
the furniture moved by the time you get here, and then it gets to that day. Oh yeah, I didn't wake up early enough.
Yeah. So it's a work in progress, and I think that I tell everybody I'm not a salesman. Daniel tells me otherwise. Other people tell me otherwise. But like I just try to help find solutions. And Rollins said it
Well,
earlier, too,
salesman's
you're
not
in
a
the
dirty
home.
word. I mean, if you're a good one, you set expectations, you tell the client
Right.
what they're going to get, and you sell things at a fair price, and all these key aspects. You also work through all the challenges that may come up, or the rebuttals from the end user or homeowner, right? So it's not a bad term. If you're good at sales, you're a salesman. So I'll call you a salesman.
And
That's fine. I'm never offended by it. I'll be honest. I'm never offended by it. It's
Eduardo
just,
wants to
that's not the
know.
label.
Eduardo wants to know why you've been crying all day, hiding your eyes.
I almost
Hey,
put on my sunglasses so
so
we could all
I-
match, and you
I
just pull
forgot to
yours
tell
down,
everybody,
Daniel. I go put on mine. We're all just sunglassed out.
I had surgery in my eye this morning. They put a laser in there and shot to the back of my eye. So the light is really killing me today.
Well, you look cool. I think it's a look that works for the podcast, and you
I-
could just be the sunglass dude on the
And it-
podcast.
And
You know,
Mario's
and
on,
so-
says, hello, Mr. Rollin, and then texted him right after that, I see you.
I had a meeting right after my surgery this morning, and I went there and I assured the young lady that I wasn't, said I feel like such a tool right now, but my eye hurts really bad, so I gotta try to protect it. So
Well, I think they look good on you. So it sounds like, Roland, and from what you and Jose are saying, I mean, it's in that first step though is really important for the salesperson to be the right, it's the first person the homeowner is going to see often, and they have a lot of responsibility to set the job up correctly and make sure that
yes.
the installer is set up for success. I hear Jose and Daniel both say that a lot on the podcast in different topics. It's about setting up your installer for success. So
You're setting the
what does
tone.
that mean to you guys? What does it mean to set the installer up for success?
Well,
So I'll go ahead, Roland. Go ahead.
when you as a salesperson, and we each have, and that's when I watch guys say, well, we don't need the salesman, or we don't need the store. Each person has a duty to do. And for the salesperson, like you said, they enter the store, it's the duty of the owner to get advertised, get people into the place. Then when they come in, it's the duty of the salesman to greet them right, to know how to handle them, to know how. But he also needs enough. That's what I said. You can get too technical with the client. That's what Jose even said. You're going to watch what he says. You can get too technical with them. You need to give them the information, of what, and the pros and cons of the product and all that kind of stuff that comes with selling. Well, then they got to set them up with understanding what they're going to go through when the install comes. And that's where you need to learn. You need to learn if you have tear up, that it could be dusty. We're protected best thing, but dust can find a place to go. All right. There, and give them ideas, and then we're going to take up, and we don't know what's under there. It could be this, get them ready for that in case there's unforeseen things. And getting them prepped to know for the installer. And then the biggest key is having that all written down for the installer. All right. If an installer has a distinctive work order that explains everything you told the consumer, not the surprise that the consumer says you told them, everything that was discussed. All right. Whether you're moving the furniture, whether you're going to, paint the banister, whether you're going to do this, a detailed layout and detailed of what needs to be done. Then he's prepared. I can look at it in the morning before I leave and go, okay, this is what I got to do. He knows what supplies to get. All right. He knows he's going to need seam tape. He knows he's going to need this specialized glue. He knows he's going to need that. Nothing's worse than getting to a job and find out there wasn't something on the work order, and now you got to run and tell consumer, I got to run. I'm going to be gone for an hour. I'll be back. So that's getting him ready for success. He's there prepared to do his job the way that the job is supposed to be done, and you prepared him for that. And so that to me is what a job of a salesman is not only to sell the job, but have the the installer, because an installer, I tell dealers, as a salesman, you can mess up and you can overcome that. If your installer messes up because you didn't give him the stuff he needs to do and do it right, a customer gets mad and might not come back to your store. I, as an installer, can take a customer who's mad at a salesperson and turn them around to love the store because of what I did. And so that success, that chain that needs to go there, as a retailer, you need to make sure you have each one trained properly to enhance the other one.
Well, it sounds like a team effort on there too, and that's a great example.
Well, that's part of being a team.
Is understanding that we all have guidelines as the installer, the salesperson, but it's also understanding that we're all human. We're all going to forget something, and being able to smooth things over when something doesn't go as planned. And that's actually coming from the installation side, having to have the salesperson's back more often than not, and learning together, because they might not know the installation side at all. All right. They're just good at selling. And that's where communication comes in, and you gotta.
Well, and that's where the team comes in. You guys were just talking about. I mean, earlier I said, often the salesperson's first thing that the homeowner sees, or in many cases anyway, and the installer's typically the last person they're going to see. So that shows you your team. You got the owner, as Roland said, that has to get the traffic in. First contact is, say, a salesperson, and not always, but in bigger stores, that's certainly true. So in bigger retailers, but very often the installer is the last taste in the retail, the consumer's mouth, so to speak. So it's like the last flavor of the store that you have is the installer. And what's important is that the installer understands that, and I think that stores that value their labor do a good job of reminding them how important they are and finding creative ways to incentivize them to not only do a good job from an installation perspective and a qualities, standpoint, but also from, like you said, Roland, were they pleasant? How being pleasant, being a guest in someone's house means that you're you're thankful for being there. You're grateful. And, you know, installers, if we can learn to be grateful for that day's work, be grateful for that project and show it through our actions and through our attitude with the consumer, whether that's retail or commercial. But, you know, I was having a conversation earlier with a guy and I was like, you know, there's two different levels of professionalism when you're, or two different ways of professionalism. You can be a pretty roughneck on a commercial job, but you better have your safety professionalism down. You better have hard hat, safety glasses, work boots, high vis vest, know your safety stuff. You may not talk the best and probably shouldn't be in a retail environment, but you take the other side and the retail installer has to be more personable and pleasant and understanding that you're a guest in the house. And, but you know, they're not wearing high vis vests and safety glasses and hard hats and work boots and things of that nature. So there's two different ways to be professional as an installer. And you know, the beauty is you kind of pick your path. I did both early on and I just gravitated to the commercial world. Maybe it's because I was a bit of a butthead when I was in my 20s and didn't always present myself the best, but I also understand what that's like. So, you know, installers out there, you are a piece of the sales process at the end of the day. You're part of the team. And the more that retail, I'm putting some words in the retailer's mouth here, but I believe that the more that a retailer can include the installer as part of their team and make sure they know that they're part of the team and make sure that they know how important they are, you know, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that because I think that you're talking about building a team, right? And you got to kind of make sure that your core values align, and then that translates over into the workspace, because there's, you know, plenty of people that we have done work for throughout the years. Kind of the same thing. It goes one of two ways. It's either, hey, this is happening on this project, and then they come back with, what do we need to do to make this right? Do whatever you need to do, right? Like, let's figure this out together. Or they say, no, do it the way I'm telling you. That's it.
Well, you know, people just like, you know, the old thing, and when you're becoming a salesman or you're coming dealing with the public, you know, they say people like to buy from people they like.
Yeah.
And so they like and trust, you know. So it's the same thing with the installation realms. People like who's in their home, who they like. Prime example was when I first went into the Carpet One, and my job was to, you know, they had some trouble with some of the installation teams and trying to decide what was going on. Their number one productive crew, I got rid of, and their lowest productive crew, I told them they needed to keep. And they were hourly at the time. They were hourly employees, and the number one production crew lost them so much work. Customers would not come back to that store.
When you say productive crew, just for clarification, is that just the one that got the most stuff put in?
Right. And his work was fine. It wasn't, you know, but that crew would go out and if you had a bigger job, that's who they sent, because that's who would get it done. The other crew wouldn't get that done. It'd take 2 days or almost 2 days to do that job. So he's the one who went, but he lost. So he, you know, they lost work. That guy, the lead guy for that company, for that crew, he had husbands that came in looking for him to beat the crap out of him on how he treated their wives while they were at work. He was, you know, a customer would come in and he would just say, "Get out of my way. I'm here to do a job. Leave me alone." He had a bad disposition. He would talk to him nasty. And I kept telling him, yes, he might get the most work done for you, but you're losing business. People aren't coming back. All right. On the other hand, part of the reason why Ron and Randy didn't get much done in a day is they became friends and would have lunch with the people. They loved them. every customer come back into the store. You know, I said, he's bringing you work back. The other one isn't. So, you know, that's part of pulling that team. You have to recognize that. You have to analyze that and bring them on the team. There was no way I was going to bring the other guy on the team when I came in there. There was just no way. He wasn't going to change his ways.
Yeah.
As
So,
you should've
so
told
why
them to
is
do
all this
commercials.
why is all this important? I mean, you know, retailers, honestly, you're not competing against one another. Really, a lot of the retailers are competing against the big box stores who,
Yeah.
where they really lack is the guidance. When you go into a box store, I won't name any, but you go in there for guidance. You need guidance in flooring. There's too many different products that are made or manufactured in different ways that have different use cases. And you go into a retailer for that guidance that you wouldn't get at a box store. But the one thing that box stores have really worked on is the customer service aspect. So if retailers are not good at both sides, kind of guiding the consumer on good product selections that fit, you know, the long-term use case for their house or a given room, and also be pleasant, be enjoyable to work with. Now, I'm not saying the box stores have great crews that do that, but my point here is you want to be in kind of checking both of those boxes. As a retailer, you don't have the marketing budget often that, you know, the big box stores do, that get on TV and commercials and all this stuff. You got to beat them on customer experience. And if you can beat them on customer experience, that customer comes back and back and back and has no desire to go and get this watered down version of what you offer. And so that's why this is an important podcast. Is, you know, retailers have to understand you're not competing against one another. In reality, you're competing against these big box stores, and your guys' job. And this is why I keep deferring to you guys, because I'm not in the residential retail world.
Here's
Go ahead, Roland.
pardon me. You're talking about that. Here's one of the things I use all the time when the person's been into a box store. All right. And this is part of being a team and showing as a team. When I go to close, or my salesman go to close, we can say, well, you know, Edwin's coming out and going to be the installer on your job next week or whenever. I'm going to assign Edwin to your job. You know, and he's a great guy. He's got a wife and he's got, you know, kids, and you can build him up. You know, say, you know, and he's going to do you a great job. He knows what our standards are and everything else. Feed it. A box store can't do that, because that salesperson has no idea who is going to go out and do that. No clue. And not saying that the guy was a bad installer, but they can't give that personal touch that a retailer can do if he builds the right team and he builds the right experience and he knows his team. You know, I mean, you know, if I show up at Alfredo's job site, I know what Alfredo drinks. I know what he likes, you know, and so I might bring him out a soda, you know, and say, here, I was on my way in. I thought I'd stop by. Here you are. You're building that team, and box stores can't do that. Where you as a retailer,
they might have their favorites every now and then, but you know,
they're not many. You know, they might get to know one here or there, but most of them nowadays, who he knows is the head of the workroom.
Yeah, not the guy actually going out to the job site.
Right? So
most often.
Right. He might know what,
right, yeah.
you know, what beer that the guy from the workroom likes, but he won't know the guy that's actually out there on that consumer's house most of the time, more time. So I know who's I'm sending, you know, and even if you don't know the day you close the deal, you'll say, well, when we schedule it with you, we'll let you know who's coming. We'll let you know what their name is and who's going to be at your home. And that's something they can't do.
Even on the commercial
So-
side, we had someone in there last week, and you know, we have pictures of crystal hanging up all over, like from when she was in the competition. And then it was a female, and she was like, "Is she going to be at this project?" And we were like, "She might be, yeah." She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." That's it.
So I want to tag on to what Roland was saying about that. One thing I'm noticing, and my mother worked at a big box store for some time, some years, and not necessarily in the flooring portion of it, but one thing that they are really good at is their retail management. Like they have a system in place that would be hard for a smaller place like me to follow, because their team is just so vast. So they're able to do that. And it sounds like we can learn from each other. They can learn from us. We can learn from them, right? And it sounds like being a smaller store, we can personalize the experience, right? We're selling an experience along with a good installation or an installation period. And like Rollins said, they can't guarantee that there's going to be a specific person or crew. They just say it's going to be done this time. So as far as the process on that, I can only guess how it's done, right? I can't say this is how it's done, but I think learning from their retail experience would probably benefit a smaller store as well. And this is my nephew, by the way, that walked in. He put a hat on because we just happened to be talking about professionalism, right? And you had mentioned that, and I was thinking, yeah, you're right. There is two levels, but I think it's professionalism combined with the proper etiquette, and I think that's what it is. It's a combination of the two. So his etiquette was hide his wild, crazy hair.
You want to see it?
Well, I think that, a lot of the key points that are, being brought out here is, I'm not trying to crap on box stores, but the personalized experience, oftentimes even there, you start with one salesman, you end with another. It's that kind of a thing. And that, not that you can always, guarantee which crew is going to be on your job, even as a small store. Sometimes you can, get close, but the point is that you can talk about your guys, them on a personal level. Yeah. And a lot of the box stores use, larger workrooms. We know that, and you just don't know who is going to come to your home. And so there's great reasons to work with quality retailers. The purpose of this was to bring out some of the needs or the important parts of being a great retailer, and how to build that up so that both the install side and the sell side are successful, and they both, kind of share in that success. The more that's understood, the more that that team kind of gets more cohesive. So working on or diving into labor a little bit more, what's the status of labor for you, Roland? I mean, your main crews that you use, are they, what kind of activity are they bringing in new guys, or is there some young guys, young people coming into your the crews, or what's that look like for you?
Well, and I'm not, I guess I try to learn how to I want to word this right, because I don't want anybody to take anything. We talk about the installation crisis. And is there an installation crisis? To a certain degree, yes, there is. But I think we miscount on people that's getting into industry to a certain degree, because it's nothing for me to see. And then one of the few of the installers I use, that every time their 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th year grade son or whatever is not going to school, he's here helping his dad. So there is a lot of younger guys being, in the exposed to the flooring industry. It was like the old days, back when I started in 72, you know, and that's why you saw so many guys saying, I'm third generation, I'm fourth generation, I'm second generation. That's how a lot of people came into the industry. It's still being done, but not as seen as much anymore because of the ethnic group that's bringing them in. Okay. The guys, certain guys, well, that's below my son, so I'm not bringing them in. But there's still some being brought in. But
Well,
so,
certainly not to the same level that's been,
No,
from the
not
past.
past,
And
so, but so there is, you're seeing in even my trainings, I'm seeing more and more, more and more than I have been in the last 5 years, younger people at the trainings. Now, whether or not the trainings are getting to be known more and that about coming could be part of it, but it's still, just the one I went down for PJ, there was 3 of them that were probably under 30.
yeah, I guess, the generational side of things is a double-edged sword. It can, you can bring in new guys, you can bring in family members and such, but also it didn't work. Like we do have, I mean, there's no doubt there is if the installation shortage is not felt by certain people, in certain areas or by certain parts of flooring yet, it will be.
Oh yeah, it is,
because people are going to retire over the next 5 to 10 years at a rate that we've never seen. And if we don't start backfilling their talent, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough friends and family in those realms. And with my son's case, he worked in the company since he was 13 and then, wanted to do something else. And that happens as well. I will say one thing that seems to be relevant today is that, we're not getting replaced with AI. I know that's a buzzword, the AI stuff, but it's true. There's a lot of stuff that's getting much easier, a lot of desk jobs and coding and things of this nature that is starting to be replaced with AI. We're going to have jobs for a long time, guys. They're not coming after the carpet and flooring guys for the robots aren't being trained to do our job. It's the auto workers and things like that. The push button kind of scenarios. There's too much skill in what we do, and it's not enough meat on the bone, so to speak.
Yeah, we don't have the cookie cutter hand skills is what it is. And every single job, no matter if it is a repeat or you're doing some assisted living where every room is the same, it's not the same. Like everything is slightly different. Can't do what we do on an assembly line. You can use assembly line mentality with the right crew, but you cannot replicate and duplicate like an assembly line. And that's what makes
No,
it
you got to
hard.
have some thought goes into almost every job.
And Roland, you had made a good point too about the under 30-year-olds you're seeing is a lot of the trainings and education classes and all that, that's all hinged based off of what the retail and salesperson is requiring of their installation crews. If they don't advocate for continued education to the guys that they're hiring, the guys that they're hiring will never think about it. Right? They're just learning. And they're making do. Nobody's requiring it. And a lot of what we do across the U.S., nobody requires their certification or training for what we do. We get certified or training so that we can be more efficient and better at what we do, right? In hopes that it does separate us and helps us stand out. And I think that if more people, retailers and just more people in general were on the same page as that, then we would have a lot more unsolicited exposure to our industry. And that's what would really help us out. And
well, it's starting to, that boat's turning slowly where, the quality of the installer is starting to matter more and more, not from what they say they can do, but what they can actually do. and certifications and trainings and having those credentials, and also displaying them in a way where it's really tough when you start talking about all these plaques on Roland's wall.
Yeah,
They-
Jeremy
they
says
all
that.
Came with the picture frame.
Jeremy said that our industry brings people in and just calls them a helper, and then has them do grunt work. And then when you just say, "Hey, that's my helper," and then they're just in that routine of grunt work, grunt work, grunt work, and every grunt person is always like, "I want to install something," right? And they don't get that chance, and that's what makes them kind of want to be like, "Why am I even going to be here if you're not going to teach me how to do something?" Which I think is and then you talk about certifications, which is you wanted to show us something today, didn't you?
Well, here's the whole thing. At the end of the day, when you're talking about training people and on the job training, there was a pretty big stigma around the industry when I first got in that I didn't want to train my replacement.
Yeah.
That's starting to wane. I'm hoping that, as the age of the installer now, like 25 years later, the 30-year-olds that I knew then are, now 55. The fact is that you got to want to train the next generation. That's our rally cry to installers out there. But how do you track that? And how do installers find new help and all these things? You can see all the problems, all these issues kind of brought up on the different Facebook groups, whether the crews are trying to hire off of Craigslist or whatever. Well, the retailer has a responsibility, in my opinion, to help their crews to work through the maturity of new installers. Go Carerra, what I was going to show you is Jumpstart. I mean, it's a job board that we created at Go Carerra where all of the new trained installers, and I should say all, but we're working with CFI, FCICA, NC, all of the training entities to bring a board and give companies like Preferred Flooring or our flooring company, Stewart and Associates, or Rollins Flooring Company. If you hire by the hour, you can get on Jumpstart and hire directly off at Jumpstart from one of the recent graduates, one of the candidates that are saying, "Hey, I want to be in flooring. I went through this course. I may not be, I'm not an installer, but I need to be with someone." And the crews on Go Carerra are able to hire straight off of Jumpstart with a minimum of a hammer rating of 1 or above. That way you can make sure that the blind's not leading the blind, so to speak, that a trained installer. So Jumpstart, just to share briefly a quick screenshot, I'm actually going to share this during the podcast here. This is what Jumpstart's coming to be, where these guys have graduated, from different, most of these are FCEF graduates, and it's simple to jump in, look at their profile. You can review their profile, what they're interested in, what they did. You can schedule an interview, go through, find out if they have, their work hour desires. Do they want to work full or part-time? Just more about the information that you are looking for when you're talking about hiring somebody new out of the industry. The key here is that, there's been a lot of effort in bringing these guys in, and there's not a real good way for placement. And I'll stop the share. I just wanted to give a quick kind of, sneak peek into what happens when you connect everything. And the key here, in my opinion, is getting these guys placed, and retailers, as well as our flooring, our installer network at Go Carerra, can hire them directly. Retailers, it's a very cheap fee to have access to Jumpstart. Our goal is to give an outlet for people to be placed with retailers and installation crews in a meaningful and in a learning environment, so that they can move forward. On the back side of that, you know, if you hire off a Jumpstart, you're required to report their skill advancement. So on a monthly basis, you go in and you fill out a report stating what you've shown them and how their progression is coming. So when somebody like Roland hires, Roland, do you have any employee installers, or is it all 1099 crews?
All 1099 crews.
So when those crews hire new guys, you know, through our program, you report on their advancement and where they're going. If they're not
That's
doing
progress reports. That's I like that.
you know what I mean? And so you can make sure that guys are trained. There has to be a way to place and track the advancement of new installers and then reward them based on that, on their performance. So
And one
Since I
thing that's
missed-
going on right
since-
there too is you're already going into a pool of people who are interested in the industry, right? You're already going into that. You're not gambling with someone who's just a friend of a friend or a family friend or a family who might be interested. You're actually drawing from a network of people who are actively showing interest in your field. And it's so funny that they said or posted or shared that. And today the conversation was, find like-minded driven individuals. You'll increase your chances of success. You know, my success is theirs, their success is mine. It's a shared effort. And I like that.
yeah. And I mean, is everybody on there going to be home runs? No, but you got a much better, I mean, they've completed one of the introductory courses into flooring, and at least they are showing interest in our industry. And then if we can place them correctly, get them with good guys, get them with good crews, get them with good companies, at the end of the day, that's a better recipe than just kind of making it up. At least you have some kind of a recipe to make your cake.
Yeah.
You're not just throwing a bunch of ingredients together and hoping something works out. And that's what we've done for so long. So having a systematic way of advancing people through their career. And then, you know, ideally I'm working with the industry, and I really would like for them to have an assessment. So after, say, 2 years being as a jump starter, working for a crew or working for a company, that after a couple of years, you can take, you know, a certification or an assessment course, training, and somewhat like I mean, we need to take cues from some of the industries that are doing it pretty well. In the electrical world, you can test out and be a journeyman after 4 years. That doesn't mean that you're automatically a journeyman after 4 years, but you can test out and become a journeyman after 4 years of being an apprentice. We're trying to create a similar environment, but a digital environment that allows guys to get progressively better. And then after, say, 2 to 4 years, they can test out. One of the entities test them. Maybe it's Roland going through a skills assessment test and hands-on certification. Not that they have a true certification from maybe, you know, like whether it's CFI or CTEF or any of those. You may not be CTI certified, but what it is saying this guy's skill assessment is here, and he's an actual installer. He's an installation professional at this point. And we have you got a potential for a new crew lead. Maybe they go through some soft skills training as well. And we have to start replacing the great crews that are out there, not replacing them, but backfilling them. So when they're ready to leave, that they can have confidence that their knowledge has been passed down. I can't think of a more honorable thing than all the stuff that's up in here, that I get to pass it down to somebody. And now my installation techniques and what I learned throughout my career and all my plaques got pushed down to other people. That's a feather in my cap when I decide that I'm done and I'm not going to install anymore. So we're trying to just show the industry that we can do things together. When retailers care about the install, like Roland does, like PF Floors, and you actually give a darn about the installation community and you pour into them and invest into them, you create a better environment for a good quality team that we've been talking about this whole time.
Right.
So,
And Jeremy just made a good point too. He says that a lot of people come into flooring and they see the things that you have now and they're like, well, I want that today. And when you're talking to, when you get these people that have gone through, some of these essentially the jumpstart certifications, right? And
yeah,
they wanna join your team, and you can show them, yeah, this is a marathon, this is not a sprint. It took me 20 years to get to where I am. And I'm not saying that it's going to take you 20 years, but you have to start somewhere and you have to progressively get better. And that's where I think it's a great idea that you can say, yeah, this is what you're doing right now. We're going to log this stuff. And then after so much time.
Now,
that seems to be one of the missing pieces. Like we get guys in and we have no way, like the old way, there's no indication of when I can go be, step out, even if I'm an employee installer, when am I qualified to go out and start running my own crew for the company I work for? When does that happen for me?
when the lead man says you're ready.
Exactly. And if the lead man,
I mean,
exactly, and that's very opinionated, correctly. I mean,
Right.
you can't help it be opinionated. It's not a measurable. We need to make it measurable. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody that passes should be an installer team lead, but it means they may have the skill set to be an installer team lead. So if we track it, nothing's perfect, but it's a big step forward in being able to place guys, make sure they're with good quality crews. That's why we encourage everybody, the entire installation community, to join Go Carerra. You don't have to do work across it. You don't have to even get your work, but you'll have access to Jumpstart. You'll be able to promote your own hammer rating and your skill set. And we're working real close to the industry. And when I say the industry, I mean like decision makers in national accounts, in architectural firms, in manufacturing. Everybody wants to use certifications or some measurable. Until our industry accepts a standardized form of what makes a good installer. We say certification, and the last CFI convention I was at, that was talked about a lot. The problem is there's so many levels to certification that is at R1, R2, C1, C2, master. What level do you want? And does the consumer understand that? So Go Carerra distilled that into a score called the hammer rating, as you guys know, and it's a 0 to 5 metric that takes into account all that. So I didn't intend on this going down that path, but I did just want to say, when we're bringing new people in, one of the things retailers need to think about over the next, 5 or 10 years is, how are you backfilling your labor sources, and how are you encouraging your current crews to hire and train the new workforce that's coming in? Our job is, as I see it, is the FCEF, whether it's there's multiple CFI, all of the different training entities. Their job is to find and train new installers and then get them in the workforce. Where Go Carerra steps in is placement and tracking of their advancement, so that we know as an industry how many new people are coming in, how many new people are getting trained, where are they at in their training, and then make sure these guys are gainfully employed in a environment that's a growth environment for them.
Essentially it's going to create an algorithm too that could give us some answers on better chances of success rate. You just got to get more people on board. And I want to go back, and I know we're running over right now, but we kept saying training our replacement. Back when I started, that's how it was viewed. 100% how it was viewed. I was always a young person. I was one of the younger leaders when I was first introduced to the industry. But as my brother and everybody came along, and I brought friends and family, it was never training my replacement. It was more or less like training and informing my successor, right? Because if you can't build a team around you that is going to essentially be at your level or take your place in a pecking order, so that way you can move on and work on other things to kind of set that pace, that then you're not doing yourself any favors for individual growth or business growth. And that's the same thing with sales, right? You don't hire sales staff and say, you're going to be a salesman for me for 25 years and that's all you're ever going to do. You know, you limit somebody like that, they'll find something else that they like to do and they'll go somewhere else. And the same thing for installation and installers. You're not training a replacement. You're teaching someone how to do what you know how to do, so that way you can work on something else and get better, and then you'll teach them that too. And you know what, if they get better than you at what you're doing, awesome, they're going to teach you something.
Problem is, Jose, is that there's still too many guys out there, or people out there, because we're not just guys anymore, too many people out there that don't have that mindset, that hurts the industry as far as bringing new people in. I'm a firm believer. I mean, we can look at the boards itself, all the boards, things we go on the different sites. You read more negative things about the industry, and from the installers that's been doing it for 20, 30 years, saying how bad it is on your back, how bad it is on this, how bad it is this. Why in the world would a young guy stumble across the site and see all this and go into this industry? So we need to correct that. We need to get the people
they're not
that
taking
doing
accountability for
right.
the way that they were taught is what it is.
Right. So,
saying-
you know,
they're giving all the, it was bad, but I didn't do everything
Right.
the right way.
Well, and let's be clear. I mean, a
Definitely.
lot of the tools and from knee pads to crab stretchers to the lighter power stretchers. I mean, everything's gotten way better.
right.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, I used crappy knee pads. You know, we didn't have, I mean, pro knees were around, but they weren't like known when I first got in. I mean, I didn't use my first crab stretcher, which, you know, in commercial, putting together 100-foot seams and such, sure saves the knee from kicking it, you know, kicking stay nailing to get a bow and skew out of a commercial carpet is no fun, you know.
No.
The fact
My
is
knee
that,
hurts just talking about it.
yeah, our industry has gotten a lot better, and we should be able to attract, you know, the younger crowd. Look, the younger crowd is coming. I think that we have to just embrace the placement, and you don't have to use Jumpstart. Like, find the guys that are interested. I'm just saying there is a resource out there that is available where we're pulling in from multiple entities and trying to put, you know, the guys that have shown interest and graduated and putting them in front of the people who need the labor. If you're not using that, that's fine. But when you get a new guy, pour into them and teach them that not only the way you were taught, but the new techniques, the new things that are out there. You know, equip your crews. If they're by the hour, equip them with the good equipment, with the good personal protective equipment. You know, great knee pads will go a long dang way. I tell you, there's an army of pro knee people out there that'll tell you how much it's made a difference in their life. From that all the way to the fact that we're not lifting as often in any manner, especially in the commercial world, but in general, like, roll good carpet is the sales of, I mean, just look at the charts, you know, the sales are way down on broadloom carpet. I remember times of carrying 60, 70, 80-foot drops up 2 sets of stairs with 7 guys, and we're all breaking our backs. Now I'm carrying carpet tile or loading carpet tile into the elevator because there's no way a broadloom would have fit in that elevator, but I can just roll in some, you know. It's a lot better industry today than it was back in the day in a lot of ways. And sadly, a little bit void of some of that mentorship that Roland was talking about earlier. I'm saying let's bring back that mentorship. It doesn't have to be your cousin. It just needs to be somebody, or your brother or your uncle or whatever. It just needs to be somebody who's interested in the flooring industry. They're your flooring brother right there automatically. And then take them into your team, teach them the right ways, and let's see if we can thrive together and build back up our industry. We get compared, or I hear a lot of industry people talk about the way that the electricians or the plumbers do it, because we're somewhat envious of the fact that, yeah, there's a skilled labor shortage overall, but we're hurting worse or more than the electrician, the plumbing industry. And the reason for that is there's a clear path to become a journeyman installer or a journeyman electrician. There's a clear path to become a journeyman plumber. We want to create that clear path in an industry that 87% of all the flooring is installed by subcontractors, 1099 people. So how do you do that? That's what we're trying to tackle through technology, and we have the technology. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I hope that our industry recognizes that there's creative ways to improve ourselves. We also, we need to embrace technology as an industry. I know that those plaques on the wall, you learn something new each time. That was a new technology. Today, it just happens to be computers and things of that nature that we need to embrace a bit.
Yeah, and I like the way you said that too, as far as they have a clear path. You're right. And we could keep making, when I say we, I mean I've always looked at it until right now. You just made me realize something. I've always looked at it like they have a clear path because the state and the city mandates that they have to pass inspections, they have to do all that. But you know what? Just because we don't have to pass a lot of that doesn't mean that we cannot create a clear path. That doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't make sense at all. So there again, I just learned something. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Paul. Because instead of pointing the finger and saying this is why we don't have a structured curriculum and a structured path to success or to a label, instead of doing that, it's why don't we? You know what? Because we haven't written it yet. That's why.
Yeah.
It's nobody else's fault.
Well, it's time we come together as an industry and both create and work together to more clearly define how a new person, that they have something to work forward, that they know that in 3 to 4 years that they can have what you were talking about, Daniel. They can have what you have, so to speak, from the skills and abilities side of things, and work towards a meaningful, rewarding career in flooring. I sometimes hear people say that with zero conviction. I'm telling you, it can be a rewarding, fulfilling career to be a flooring installer. That doesn't mean you have to do it for 60 years. It just means that you can do it for the time that you want to do it, as long as you're trained properly, you're working with good people, and that the industry overall values you as an individual.
Very well put.
Roland, any last words, sir? We ran over here about 15 minutes. I'm going to close her down. I appreciate you coming on board and sharing your experience and your years of doing this, and it's enlightening. It's always a pleasure to listen to guys who have been there, done that.
Well, I guess in closing, what I would say is that, to build yourself a good team takes dedication on all sides. The retailer, the salespeople, the installer. It takes dedication to make a good team. And as far as the, making this a path of success, there again, it's something that you're going to want to do as an individual. Block out all the negativity in that, and go ahead and learn to trade. I wasn't here to know exactly how you're going to get the people to understand the path that you're doing with a jump start, but we'll talk more on that.
Yeah, I invite those conversations, and I want to, listen to people who've been through the struggle, both in residential and commercial, but retail, there's a huge need to help the new people. To me, it's a travesty if CFI and FCICA and WFCA and all these acronyms are working so hard to bring new people in, but there's no systematic way to get them to the next step. And I'm all ears on input on how that can happen. We've built a piece of technology that can be molded and used, but we're not like, who's the guy on Facebook, Floor God,
Mario.
Mario. Yeah, he has to text me. Hey, Mario.
So at the end of the day, I just want to improve our industry overall. And I think together with some teamwork and jumping on this podcast, the dedication that Jose and Daniel have, and you're on here often too, Roland, and just the dedication you guys have for the industry is admirable. I appreciate it. I know that the industry appreciates it.
Give yourself credit. I wouldn't be here right now talking on this podcast if it wasn't for you, sir. So give yourself a little bit of credit there.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Well, guys, with that, I'm going to close her out. Appreciate you, Roland. Guys, as always, thank you so much for coming on and being such a anchor for this thing and the movement. Appreciate the input, and it's always enlightening. So until next week, in fact, I'll be talking to you guys a little bit later, but until next week, we will see the audience. And if you enjoy some of the content, please give us a like and subscribe. I'm not too proud to beg. It gets more people exposed to some of the concepts that we're talking about. And, at the end of the day,
Share it with everyone you know.
Information. What's
Share
that?
Share it with everyone you know.
Share it, comment. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. Hell, even if you don't like it, give us a thumbs down. Either way, it's all good.
It's interaction.
It all counts.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
All right, see ya.
All right, see you, Roland.
Good day.
All right.